How powerful is Cox Internet?
Hey, old friend. Hey, buddy.
So powerful that you can not only reminisce about the good old days.
Let's push these babies like back in the day. I'm right behind you.
But relive them too. Introducing multi-gig download speeds powered by fiber from Cox. It's internet built for tomorrow, today. Limited availability in select areas.
Welcome to the 2023 Mayoral Candidate Forum hosted by the Tucson Business Alliance. I'm Stephanie Healy and I'm the Director of Public Affairs at Cox Communications. Cox is pleased to partner with the Tucson Business Alliance to be the presenting sponsor this year for this important forum showcasing the candidates' ideas and visions for our community. On behalf of the Cox employees that live, work, and play here in Southern Arizona, we recognize how important leadership is for a community. We've been doing business and investing here in Tucson for decades. We're the company that first brought widespread and ultra-fast, reliable internet and offer 1 gig speeds to our customers, including our customers in the city of Tucson. Cox has invested more than $11 billion over the last 10 years to expand and upgrade our network, and we have no plans to slow down now. Earlier this year, we began rolling out multi-gig speeds, and we'll have them available by the end of this year to more than 65% of Arizona customers. We've also doubled speeds for the majority of our customers this year, delivering 500 megabytes per second, that's half a gig, to 75% of our customers, and at absolutely no extra cost. We're also proud to have doubled the download speeds on affordability tiers like Connect to Compete and Connect Assist, offering choice and access to all customers in Tucson and throughout our network. Through public-private partnerships, Cox has been awarded over $20 million in federal, state, and local grants in Arizona to support underserved communities. And right now, our team is rolling out new network across Arizona. Here in Tucson, through our digital equity and affordability programs, nearly 45,000 low-income households have gotten a life-changing internet connection at no cost through Cox's partnership with the Affordable Connectivity Program. That equates to over 105,000 people in our community being connected to what matters most. But we know there's still work to be done. These investments that Cox is making are possible in part because of our strong public-private partnerships, because of innovative leaders and elected officials that have come to the table and that are committed to driving investment, local jobs, and tools for economic prosperity for our residents. And for us at Cox, that's what this forum is all about, building a better future for not only today, but for the next generation too. To help guide the 2023 Mayoral Candidate Forum, our moderators are Alex Rodriguez, CEO of Freefall 5G, and Alex is joined by Shelley Watson, Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Southern Arizona Leadership Council. Thanks again to our viewers and our audience for making the time to better understand the issues facing Tucson.
Thank you to Cox Communications for your partnership in presenting today's forum. Now, we're all here because we have a love of Tucson. We have a love of Tucson. And so this afternoon, we have the honor of hearing from the 3 mayoral candidates who will appear on the ballot for mayor for the city of Tucson in November. Alphabetically, I want to introduce you to the 3 candidates. Independent candidate, business owner and educator, Dr. Ed Ackerley. Democratic candidate and current mayor of the city of Tucson, the Honorable Regina Romero. Republican candidate, contracts administrator, Ms. Janet Wittenbraker. Janet. I want to thank all 3 of the candidates for showing up today, and let's give them one more strong round of applause for stepping up for Tucson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, as Stephanie mentioned, this forum is being hosted by the members of the Tucson Business Alliance, which is composed of the leading business organizations in our region. And as such, the questions were crafted through a business lens. We're going to focus on some of the major concerns of those in the business community, and many sectors of the business community are represented here in the room today, and we appreciate you being here. I want to emphasize that today's forum is not a debate. It will be a discussion where the candidates will provide responses to the questions and the topics we pose in order to learn more about the ways that they would move Tucson forward. As business leaders, we expect and will insist upon decorum in the room and respectful treatment of one another so that we have time to hear from the candidates on the questions that we have for them. The topics are going to fit broadly into 4 categories. And we're only going to be able to scratch the surface today in these categories in the time that we have together. But those 4 categories will be public safety, infrastructure, affordable housing and homelessness, and economic prosperity. Candidates will have up to 2 minutes to answer each of the questions that Alex and I will pose of them, unless it's a rapid-fire question. And for those 2 questions that we have, we would really appreciate candidates a yes or no answer or a very short sentence in answer. On the front row here, we have Alan Kinnison and Nicole Barraza from SALC. They're going to serve as our timers today, and they'll hold up their cards here in a minute, so you'll be able to see candidates. You will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. When 15 seconds is remaining, you'll see a yellow card go up. That'll be your reminder. When time is up, you'll see a red card be held up. And we will then need to move on to the next candidate and or the next question. So please be as brief and concise as you can with your question or with your answers. We have a lot to cover, so let's begin. And please note that we will rotate the order of the speaking.
You guys ready? Yes? All right, let's get started. Candidates, at the conclusion of today's forum, you will have the opportunity to make a closing statement and to make your case why you are the best choice for mayor for the city of Tucson. To begin with, however, we would like you to answer the following question, and each of you will have up to 2 minutes to do so. First, candidates, please tell us what you love the most about Tucson. And secondly, tell us what your biggest concern is about the city and what you would do about that concern if you had a magic wand. Dr. Ackerley, you're up first.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Cox, and I'd like to thank the Tucson Business Alliance for inviting us here today to share this information with you. You know, I could say that I'm thankful for the Doubletree, since they're my client for the last 40 years for being here. I could say thanks to my brother and my company, Ackerley Advertising. But you know what I want to say? I think the best thing about Tucson is the people. And I thought a lot about this because, you know, I've born and raised in Tucson, and people are what make Tucson different from all other cities, the group of people that we have here, the diverse culture, the different people. I was thinking back to some of my elementary school friends who are helping me on the campaign, all the way through all the people I enjoy working with at the University of Arizona, and of course all of my clients in business that we've had in business for the last 55 years. So it's the people, and if I had a magic wand, I would want to do something about public safety, specifically hire more police officers. That would be the #1 thing that I would do, is try to help the police force get some more people to help them in their endeavors.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Romero.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for the Business Alliance for organizing this. The candidates that are here for running for office, this makes our democracy that much stronger. And of course, my team, my campaign team, my sister's here, and of course, my husband, the first dude of Tucson, is running around picking up kids and taking them to their events, so he couldn't be with us today. But, you know, at the risk of sounding cheesy, I would say the same thing. I believe that the city of Tucson and what makes us most unique, what I love the most, is our heritage and the history that we have, our arts and culture, and of course the people that make it so unique. It's unique amongst cities in the entire world. That's why we're a UNESCO City of Gastronomy, the first one in the United States, and that is why Time Magazine selected Tucson as one of the top 50 places to visit in the world. So it's not, don't take it from me or Ed, take it from Time Magazine. Our natural beauty is incomparable, and the history and heritage we have here is very, very important, and what makes us the gorgeous city that we are. If I had a magic wand, I would eradicate poverty. And one of the reasons that I believe eradicating poverty is important is because poverty really is at the root of so many societal ills that complicate our lives. And so eradicating poverty is something that I'm now working on and would like to have a magic wand to get rid of.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Janet.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate all of your input and your advice as I run for mayor of Tucson, and I thank you for your time. Now, as an athlete, I have to say what I love most about Tucson is our desert climate, where I can enjoy outdoor sports year-round. But unfortunately, many of our recreational areas within the city and parks have become unsafe. And as such, I've had to retreat my workout to areas outside of the city limits. Tucson is beautiful, and it needs to be protected. And we need to put our forces into saving what resources we have, which natural resources we have, which includes our washes and our parks and our habitat. And with that said, if I had a magic wand, I would end fentanyl. But it's not going to take a magic wand to fight fentanyl. I can do that with a fully staffed police department, an empowered judicial system that have the support of their mayor and enforce our laws. What you need from me is someone who's going to stand behind our laws and also advocate for closing our border, in which fentanyl is coming across at record levels. So much so, pills are 47 cents each, and each one has the potential of killing a person who's suffering from substance abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And now let's turn our attention to the questions in the categories that I mentioned previously. Let's start, as some of you have mentioned, with public safety, since that is one of the core responsibilities of the city. So the first question that I have for you is, are there enough commissioned police officers in the city of Tucson? And what is the mayor and council's role in increasing and maintaining TPD officers as well as first responder levels? And Mayor Romero, we'll start with you on this question, please.
Thank you so much. Under my leadership, we have seen historic investments in our public safety team, both in police, fire, and 911 communications. We have seen I have pushed for, and we've passed historic wage increases. We've invested, like no other mayor and council, into the preservation of our public safety retirement system. We are investing $90 million on top of our budget into infrastructure, equipment to keep our police officers safe and the community safe. We're investing $88 million in the 911 Communications Center. We created a position that never existed before I was mayor, community service officer position. We've hired 100 of them. For the first time in the last 5 years, we've seen an increase in police officer positions. And we're going to continue making sure that our community safety officer positions, that we're growing our own. I'm really happy to have an incredible partnership with Chief Casmar, and where we see a holistic way of serving our communities in terms of public safety. Community Safety, Health, and Wellness is a program that we created to lift some of those responsibilities off the shoulders of our police officers. For far too long, decades as a matter of fact, police officers were expected to be clinical psychologists, to be social workers, to be everything. And now we're creating systems and structures to be able to take those responsibilities off. We created the Community Safety, Health, and Wellness to be able to lift those responsibilities and put the right work in the right hands.
Thank you, Mayor. Janet, you're up next.
Thank you. I commend Mayor Romero and her efforts in trying to bring our police department up to adequate staffing. But the reality of the matter is we do not have adequate amount of officers to enforce our laws. And we also have people who are ill-equipped to deal with multiple situations any given time because they're ill-equipped, because training is rushed. They're not receiving sufficient training. They're tired. They're working multiple shifts. And we need to recruit. But we can't homegrown our officers. It takes 6 months, it takes a year to get a total of 60 officers through the academy. And then there is the attrition on top of that. And I'll remind you, we saw horrendous attrition in our police force with the previous police chief and also with the vaccine mandate. We need to recruit from outside of Arizona, outside of the city of Tucson. And we need to pay more than those other states and those other cities and have one heck of a benefit package to attract those officers, because those officers are needed to restore our social norms, to restore our community, to protect your safety. And so day one would begin with a very aggressive recruitment process. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Ackerley?
First off, I'd just like to thank the mayor. I appreciate your 15 and a half years of service here at the city of Tucson. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate your leadership that you've provided, and you've done well. I do want to just say that we have 763 commissioned police officers on the streets of the city of Tucson right now. When my high school football mate, Roberto Villaseñor, some of you know him as Taz, was the police chief, he had almost 1,400 police officers at his command. And we have lost a number of police officers over the years for a variety of different reasons. One of the ones was what the mayor mentioned, which was the retirement program, which got into trouble there. But I just think we need to do a better job of recruiting and retaining our police officers. Some other jurisdictions have come in and taken our police officers away from us, and we need to do a better job of retaining the ones we have, but also recruiting new people. I heard a really great way to do that. I was in a meeting with a bunch of pastors of churches, and one of the principals of a school stood up and said, I have an idea for you. Why don't you go back to your congregations, and why don't you get one person to volunteer from your church to volunteer to go become a police officer. I thought that was a fantastic idea. If we could get some more people who are grown right here in Tucson, who know the area, know the people here, would be important. You know, we have to do something about public safety. We had 68 homicides in 2020, 97 in 2021, 75 last year, and we're up to about 50 so far this year with the shootings this weekend. We just have to do a better job of funding the police and getting more police on the street. When you talk to them, when you talk to Chief Kazmar, they're just strapped. They don't have enough police officers to cover the city. My number one priority would be to give us the wherewithal and fill the budget lines to give us enough police officers for the 33rd largest city in the country.
Thank you, candidates. Digging a little bit deeper on this topic of safety, accessibility to public spaces, parks, city parks, what are some of the specific actions that mayor and council can take to foster a stronger safety climate for our city? Janet.
Well, the city mayor and council can enact an ordinance that prohibits encampments and suburban camping in our parks, in our neighborhoods, and on our streets. And they can facilitate care through qualified programs. And by facilitating care for qualified programs, I mean offering services first, but those services through charitable organizations. On any given night, any one of our charitable organizations equipped to deal with mental illness and substance abuse are running at 50% capacity because we are enabling homelessness, and inevitably we are enabling violence or crime or both. Fentanyl is our most important issue. And we see in our parks, we find foils in our parks, syringes in our parks. And I live in a middle-class neighborhood. And because of that, we're endangering our children, our families, and our loved ones because we're allowing for our parks to be overtaken. And that has to stop, and it stops with an ordinance, and it starts with enforcement. And we enforce our laws, and if people are unwilling to get the care they need to deal with whatever circumstances they're dealing for, and mind you, encampments are not inhumane. There is nothing humane about it. Substance abuse, allowing people to do whatever they want, is not humane. And so we enforce our laws, and should they not choose treatment, then they can choose to leave the city limits and exist outside of the city limits. And that's how we take back our parks and protect our citizens.
Okay, and Mayor Romero.
Again, factual. This administration and I have pushed historic investments in our police department, historic wage increases, historic investments in funding for their necessary equipment and technology. We created a position that didn't exist before I was mayor. Community service officers are helping tremendously in really answering to the non-emergency calls that our police officers cannot take, that are focusing on high crime. And so we have 101 community service officers in the city that are engaging with community and working with community safety, health, and wellness. I created a program, it didn't exist before I was mayor, a program that really lifts responsibilities off of the shoulders of police officers and really looks at a holistic approach, working with different departments in our city to really go to our community, to neighborhood parks, to washes, to neighborhoods, to make sure that we send care coordinators to ask individuals what their needs are. We created the P&I program, which has proven to bring down gun violence and crime in certain micro areas of our city by 88%. A holistic approach to community safety is working. We need to, in the next 4 years, I want to continue investing in the vibrancy of our neighborhoods, in violence interrupters, in youth employment opportunities, and making sure that we have and that we institute other evidence-based solutions to reduce violence, reduce crime, and gun violence in our city.
Dr. Ackerley?
Well, it is true that we only have 763 commissioned police officers right now trying to cover a city of Tucson with 33,000 calls a year, of service calls a year. That's why when you call 911, unless it's a domestic violence or someone's life is in danger, you're probably not going to get a quick response, and if you do, it's probably one of the 300 community resource officers that are on staff. And they have taken a load off of the commissioned officers. But, you know, my father was 97 years old when he passed away a couple years ago, and I think he thought all the time he lived in Tucson here for almost 70 years that if he called 911, it's because he needed 911 service and that they should come. So I believe that public safety is a problem. I do believe that the Center for Opportunity out on Palo Verde is a really good model. You know, there have been 11 states that have come by and have looked at that model. One country come by and look at that model to see how we're working with people that are fentanyl addicted or homeless who are, you know, quite frankly, some of them, not all of them, but some of them are stealing and causing problems for businesses and so forth. I'm all in on the idea of you got door A or door B. We're gonna disrupt this lawlessness that's happening in the city of Tucson, and we're going to give you an opportunity in community court. Once a month in community court, you can be adjudicated into a community program, or you can down by the jail have a place where you can make a decision. Am I going to continue down this road, or am I going to be one of those people that changes their life? And so, and if people who live in our community don't want to abide by the law, we have a responsibility to our children and our grandchildren to make sure that the people that are committing lawless acts are held accountable. And unfortunately, that's not happening all the time right now.
Thank you, candidates. So the final question that we have in this category is along those lines where we just left off. I think we're all seeing that retail theft is significantly on the rise across the country as well as here in our community. If elected candidates, how will you engage with the business community, with residents, and with community organizations to implement crime reduction strategies, including retail theft? And we'll start with Dr. Ackerley on this one.
In with the Tucson Crime-Free Coalition, I think there's 4,000 businesses that have made it known that it is difficult for them to do business in the city of Tucson when they come to work and there's somebody laying in front of their building, or that they've broken a window. I was just with an owner of McDonald's who has 24 McDonald's. He was telling me the stories of them breaking the windows and getting into his places in the middle of the night, and how much that's cost him for private security and for repair of windows and so forth. I believe we just have to do a better job as a community to make sure that we're supporting these businesses that are struggling to try and combat the lawlessness and the retail theft. And again, this gets back to, we all have to be vigilant, and we all also have to support the police. And, unfortunately, if it's not something really serious, the police aren't going to show up if something happens in there. And now the larger companies, the employees can't engage the lawless. So if you've been to a Circle K or a Quick Trip, you've seen it. They walk in, they take whatever they want, and they walk out the front door with no accountability. I believe we need more police officers on the city of Tucson streets to make sure that we send a message to lawless criminals that it is not appropriate to steal a shopping cart out of the Home Depot parking lot. It's not appropriate to steal things out of the Quick Trip store, and it's not appropriate to have a gang to go into the Target store and take whatever you want and pretend like you're not going to be held accountable for it. I grew up in a city that we used to keep our doors open at night because we didn't have to be affected by people who were stealing. This is not the city that I grew up in, and we've got to do a much better job of enforcement and a much better job of holding people accountable who are going to do lawless activities in our city. It's just not what Tucson is, and we need to stop it.
Thank you. Janet?
This is a really simple answer. Again, all these answers have been very similar. We must staff our police department, and we must empower our judicial system. And remember, the city of Tucson has a system of judges that are not prosecuting the cases. And once we staff our police department, then we crack down on crime. And there's no such thing as a crime that's not worthy of punishment. It's the degree of that punishment to the extent of the law. By allowing the continualization of this lawlessness, you're creating more lawlessness. People figure, why won't I just do it? It has to stop. And it shouldn't be in those store owners' hands to have to stop the crime. They pay their taxes into the city that has an obligation for public safety. It shouldn't be in your hands to support those businesses. It should be in your hands to support your police department. And I, too, am very familiar with the Tucson Crime-Free Coalition, and they're doing a tremendous job at educating people. Educating people is that difference, but enforcing the laws, stops the organized crime. And that's what it is. It's very organized, it's very calculated, and it needs to be fully investigated, prosecuted, and stopped immediately. Because I'll tell you this much, You are losing your city. And if we don't act now, you're going to lose your tourist industry, and all is lost. Thank you.
Thank you, and Mayor Romero.
Thank you. I believe that we have an incredibly talented Tucson Police Department. I am very optimistic about the work that Chief Kasmar is doing holistically with the help and support and the investment of Mayor and Council, and the work that he is doing both with Sheriff Nanos and County Attorney Laura Conover. We have to make sure that we continue investing in the work that we're doing right now, a holistic approach to crime prevention, gun violence prevention, and intervention in the city. And I believe that the programs that we have created from scratch are really working. We cannot go to methods of the past or lie all of the responsibility of community safety on the shoulders of our police department. It doesn't work like that. We have to make sure that we are investing in programs that are evidence-based, like the Place Network investigation, that reduce crime and gun violence on Grant and Alvernon by 78%. And that is bringing down the silos, working with TPD and their investigation, working with housing community development, our community safety, health, and wellness, and other departments within the city, including code enforcement, business owners, neighborhood residents, to find long-term solutions to the issues that plague our society. And the city of Tucson is not unique, unfortunately. This is happening throughout the country. But we really do need to make sure that we're finding holistic approaches and evidence-based solutions that right now are working in the city of Tucson.
Well, thank you, candidates, for your comments and your leadership on public safety issues. I'd like to turn our attention to critical infrastructure issues next, with roads being at the very core of this conversation and responsibility for the city of Tucson. So, candidates, what should the mayor and council prioritize in terms of the city's transportation infrastructure writ large, but specifically around road conditions, traffic flow, and public transportation? And Mayor Romero, you're up first.
We have been very responsive to infrastructure investment. Actually, as a matter of fact, I believe that infrastructure investment is one of the most important responsibilities that governments owe to their taxpayers. We've been investing in both road repair and investment in big infrastructure transportation projects. Infrastructure is connected to our economy, is connected to our quality of life. And as the mayor, I heard, even when I was running in 2019, people want investment in our roads. And one of the first actions that I took in the first budget that I worked on as mayor, for the first time in the history of the city of Tucson, we invested general fund money for road investment, not just highway user revenue fund, but more than $14 million per year for the first 2 years that I was mayor, because we understand that Tucsonans want infrastructure and to fix our roads. Knowing the needs of our community, I went out with the support of my colleagues on the council. We won Proposition 411, more than $750 million that are going to be produced for the next 10 years, 600 of them to fix every residential road in the city of Tucson for the next 10 years. $150 million of that money to protect pedestrian and bicycle safety, because we kill way too many bicyclists and pedestrians in our streets. Never have we seen an investment in this quantity in residential road repair. It has taken decades in our community to see our crumbling roads. It will take the next 10 years to repair every residential road in the city of Tucson. And I brought millions of dollars in federal funds to fix roads and bridges in our city.
Janet, critical infrastructure.
Thank you. $14 million out of a $2 billion budget is not a significant investment in our infrastructure. Our roads are failing, and they need to be rebuilt. Outside of my backyard is a road that I swear to you has more pothole patches than it actually has original road. We must stop wasting money on repairing our roads with temporary fixes. We must rebuild our roads by taking up the asphalt and laying down new asphalt. We also need to end fare-free transit, which is also part of our transportation budget and is actively used by people who are taking narcotics, committing violent crimes, and using the fare-free transit as a getaway car from the earlier question with the epic shopping lifting. So, the city's responsibility, public safety, transportation, parks. If you were to break up a $2 billion budget, you would have a little bit more than $14 million to invest in your roads and your infrastructure. Fix our roads, create safer road conditions by having a consistent flow of traffic, not limiting lanes, but rather creating separate vehicles for bikes to get across town. What I mean by vehicles, I mean there are certain roads. As a matter of fact, I have a brand new road that drives through my residential area with bikes, and we've seen our crime increase exponentially because it comes right off the reed. So, yeah, invest in our roads. Should it be about a third of $2 billion. Thank you.
Dr. Ackerley, infrastructure.
I think we need to take a look at the Complete Streets program and how we're carving up our streets into different lanes for bikes and so forth. I spent Friday down on South 12th Avenue with about 50 businesses. Every single one of them complained about the traffic barricades that are out on South 12th Avenue, and certainly they probably could have been involved in the process early on, but now that there are the boulders and the big balls and the turn-off lanes and so forth, they're not happy, and they don't think it's good. Go to people up on Campbell Avenue where there's big, giant median things in the middle of their streets to limit access to their streets. We have to be very conscious about when we're planning. I think there's no better example than the 22nd Street Bridge. The feds come in and give us several $1 million to do a bridge that we've been talking about for 50 years. And I happened to be in a meeting with the city manager and stakeholders the other day. And we're trying to put a Band-Aid on something that needs to total restructure. And the manager admitted that we just don't have all the money together to do it right and to do it the way that it needs to be done. I also believe that I did an over-under with some friends of mine as to whether or not my personal street that I've lived on for 32 years is going to be paved with that new bond money in the next 10 years. I said that to the director of transportation, and he took down my address, so I think maybe I might lose that one because he might come out and do it. But, no free bus rides anymore. I think that is a terrible idea. I was okay during the pandemic, but not anymore. I think we need to have people paying their way. We have to have road repairs. I'd love to see some more street teams that are out fixing these potholes that are I have one on my street that's been there for 2 years. And so we need to do a better job of repairing the streets that we have.
Thank you. Okay, candidates, now we're going to turn our attention to a different facet of infrastructure. What would your administration do to expand digital infrastructure, including broadband access, to support both business growth and to support education? And we will start with Dr. Ackerley.
I've had the good fortune of meeting with every single department head in the city of Tucson and meeting with the new Director of Communications who's handling the city's installation of their internet and infrastructure that runs the city. And, unfortunately, we got hooked up with a system some years ago that is a little bit antiquated and doesn't really serve the purpose of a 33rd largest city in the United States. And so bringing that up to a good place is a great place to start with the infrastructure of the digital footprint. We also need to do a better job of providing digital access to, for instance, Sunnyside High School, some of the down in Summit and some other places where Sunnyside is trying to increase educational opportunities for students. They just don't simply have the right wherewithal to be able to do that. And, you know, thanks to Cox and other companies that are helping donate some service down there so that they can do that. I do believe that you know, it is important that we make sure that for the next, if we're going to be, you know, U of A has been on every NASA project since NASA started, and so we're a high-tech kind of a city with a Research One institution and lots of companies that deal in the high-tech industry. Our infrastructure needs to match that. We need to be very high-tech in our infrastructure and make sure we're leaning forward and not looking backwards on that. And so the investment in that is real, and it's difficult, and certainly we can do a better job in engaging the federal government with some of the resources that are available there. But I do agree that the digital footprint is an infrastructure that it's invisible. It's not like a pothole in your neighborhood street. It is really important that we do a better job of providing service for everyone for the future.
Thank you. Janet, what are your thoughts on expanding digital infrastructure?
To be honest, I haven't given it much thought at all. I have no issues with my internet connection. I do know we have some lower economic areas that have issues with affording internet connections. And mind you, and no offense to our hosts, it's not cheap. Thanks, Ed. And so I would have to first meet with the business community, understand where the deficiencies are. I know I've met with a group of concerned citizens about the excessive installation and inappropriate installation of 5G towers throughout our city. But I'd ask you to come to me and tell me what the issues are and tell me what you think the city's role is in providing digital infrastructure to the business community. Seems to me that that might be a business community responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Romero.
Thank you. I have worked to put a team together in the city of Tucson to really take a look at not just our infrastructure, but what are the possibilities of the city of Tucson to take advantage of federal funds through the CHIPS Act, through the Inflation Reduction Act, and other infrastructure investments and possibilities for the city of Tucson. We put together a task force to apply for these funds, and one of the committees in the task force is tasked with looking at how do we apply for fiber and high-speed internet infrastructure to bring to the city of Tucson. I believe that for both businesses and for our educational systems, we need to make sure that we're connecting our students to the world and our businesses to the global economy. And so we are actively pursuing funds, and by the way, opened up a request for qualifications so that we can put those funds in the hands of private companies that will help us install and monitor these investments in fiber and internet services. So I have thought about this issue greatly. If we do not connect ourselves to the world, then we are going to be left behind, not just our students, but our businesses. And we're competing globally right now. And so that is an important piece of the infrastructure puzzle. And working with Cox Communications and other companies, we can bring federal funds that would otherwise go to other cities in America that could easily leave us behind. So we have to take advantage of that money.
Okay, so the next question will be a rapid-fire question. So again, we're looking for a yes or no answer, or a very brief answer. So you're familiar with RTA Next. We discussed that. The reauthorization of the Regional Transportation Authority will likely be on the ballot in the spring of 2025. Do you support RTA Next? Yes or no? Janet?
No.
Dr. Ackerley?
Yes.
Mayor Romero.
Yes, I voted to put it on the spring of 2025 ballot.
We commend you on your rapid fire answers. Good job.
I was impressed.
All right, we're going to transition now to our next category of questions. There's many issues and complications associated with affordable housing and homelessness in our community. We've touched on some of those already. Certainly on the minds of business leaders for sure. So there are multiple issues that contribute to the problem of homelessness, including mental illness, substance abuse, and availability of affordable housing. We would like to know what you believe is the best approach to addressing the issues of the homeless community and its impact that it makes in Tucson. And Dr. Ackerley, we'll start with you.
Well, let's get the cash registers ringing really loudly in the city of Tucson. Let's support these businesses that give us the retail sales tax, which allows us to then fund the general fund to do some things to help. Right now, we have $2.2 billion in the budget, but if we jumpstart the economy and get some cash registers ringing, we'll have some more money that we can use in the future for this problem. I just really think that the education about fentanyl use and so forth is we have to have disruption of the fentanyl trade and people benefiting of that. We've got to do a better job of enforcement of municipal camping and people being able to stay in a certain place for a long period of time. I know that there's been some pushback on removing homeless people and so forth from medians and in city property and so forth because of some adjudication that's going on with that. But we need to send a message to the community that Tucson is a safe place to do business, that it's a safe place to live and raise a family, and that we are not a haven for anybody that wants to come and use fentanyl or other drugs or steal from stores or be involved in retail theft. And we don't want to conflate the two issues. Not every single human being that is homeless is a fentanyl addict or a person that is lawless. But we do have to separate the two and make sure that the people that are conducting lawless criminal acts are held accountable. And you can only do that with more police officers so that we can actually enforce the laws. The model that we have at the HSL Center for Opportunity is the model that I think we should use. Give people an opportunity to change their lives, and that will help both drug-addicted people and homelessness.
Thank you. Mayor Romero, what is the best approach to attacking this problem?
There's not one best approach. When I became mayor of the city of Tucson, we did not have an organized approach, a process to deal with homelessness. There was no organized plan for either affordability, housing affordability, or unsheltered homelessness. This is such a complex issue. I agree that the opioid epidemic and now fentanyl and meth are adding to the issues, decades worth of lack of investment in behavioral health, mental health, and the inability for systems to come together and work towards a solution. So I created one. I created the Community Safety, Health, and Wellness Program. I created and gave direction to have a housing affordability strategy for Tucson. I pushed with my colleagues on the council the evidence-based housing first approach, which is, by the way, not the silver bullet, but I saw the gap that particular program did not exist anywhere in the city of Tucson. So housing first is basically that, housing an individual, and while you're housing them, stabilizing them, wrapping around services of behavioral health and substance use. Many of these people are veterans, elderly, they qualify for Social Security, and connecting them to the services that they need. Since we created Housing First in the city of Tucson, we have permanently housed over 650 individuals in the city. Like I said, there's not one approach. So we work and give our general funds and federal funds to OPCS, O Pueblo Community Services, with Primavera, with the Salvation Army. We work with the Center of Opportunity because people are at certain places at different times. So it really is a whole approach, a complex and holistic approach to a big problem.
Indeed. Janet, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I would say there's a systematic issue. If our homelessness continues to increase year after year after year, and the demand for affordable housing increases year after year after year. The Housing First program is a program that was developed under Barack Obama's presidency. It is a highly unsuccessful program. It throws tax dollars for shelters for homeless without accountability, meaning they can continue to use drugs and they can refuse mental health treatment. I do not support the Housing First program in one sense of the word. I support enforcing our laws, which includes prohibiting the use of narcotics in the open in front of people. I mean, this has become something that I see on a regular basis. Every day, I'll drive by a shopping center or a bus stop, and someone is using fentanyl, and there's very recognizable traits to using fentanyl and methamphetamines. We enforce our laws, and that vastly reduces poverty, homelessness, and crime. And then we can get a handle on the homeless situation of those people who need our assistance. But with fentanyl clouding our perspective, filling up our social services, we can't help those who truly need our help. Now, I'm not saying those who are suffering from substance abuse don't need our help, but they need a different kind of help from a qualified care that can provide them with the medicines they need to come off of fentanyl, methamphetamine, etc.
Thank you, candidates. And actually digging deeper on this topic, what are some of the strategies and I would say tactics as well that you will bring to the table as mayor? What will you champion in addressing the root cause of homelessness to begin with? Mayor Romero.
As I said, I've been working from the first month of being mayor. We have seen unsheltered homelessness grow throughout this country, and it really started being aggravated because of the opioid epidemic and other complex issues, behavioral mental health issues, and lack of investment from both, all levels of government, federal, state, county, and cities throughout the country. And so I believe that this issue should not lie on the shoulders of cities alone. That's why I have reached out to Pima County and we had not seen partnership between the city of Tucson and Pima County in a long time. And this is an area where we're working together to figure out and undo the knots of complexity of TPD working with our sheriff's department because of our jail and the needs that are happening in our jail, and also our justice system and how to handle the justice system. It's complex. I have been very adamant about making sure that we're layering the different programs that we have. Housing First is not, like I said, the silver bullet. We are working with both general funds and federal funds to invest in organizations like Primavera, which has shelter services, Salvation Army, Center of Opportunity, Sister Jose's. And so I think that we have to continue making sure that we are investing in prevention services, intervention services to help alleviate the eviction of people, the people becoming homeless to begin with. And we're working very closely with Pima County and the state to do that.
Janet?
The question was about dealing with
Yes,
the root
strategies
cause.
and tactics
cause.
to address the root cause. What will you champion in particular?
Well, there's
Janet?
not one root cause for homelessness. Everyone in this room knows that. It's multifaceted. But we can attribute approximately 70% to substance abuse and mental illness that sometimes is caused by excessive use of substances. We do have a low economic standing, low wages, and we need to bring in businesses to help those people who do want to contribute to society and do want to make a cost of living that they can afford apartment buildings. We saw our property values increase exponentially. Rents go up. Why did that happen? Because not only do we have a shortage of affordable housing, we have a shortage of mid-level housing and luxury housing. So then the housing, the people who've migrated to our state, in full disclosure, I migrated to our state 20 years ago, come in with their higher salaries and their higher costs, their higher ability to pay for higher costs in homes, and they drove up our prices. And then there was an inventory shortage. So we work together as a community, work with our builders to develop buildings that cross all spectrums of housing needs. Get rid of the Housing First program, work with our charitable organizations. And I'll say this, when someone is incarcerated and they get out of jail, we as a society do a horrible job of welcoming them back in our community. We continue to punish them. They have a difficult time renting a home, and they have a difficult time getting a job, creating a recidivism rate that also needs to stop. Thank you.
Dr. Ackerley.
From a business perspective, we need to invigorate the economic base that we have here. We got to make sure that our businesses are strong and sound and that they can offer jobs to people, and people can create businesses here in Tucson so that we can have a higher average wage and that we can have more of better and higher paying jobs. One solution I would have is to engage the churches. I've spent the last 2 years going to 4, 5, 6 churches a Sunday, engaging with populations, and they come up and tell me their stories of what they see are the major problems with the city of Tucson. And I turn around and look them right back in the eye and say, we need to work together to solve these problems. And one area that they could help is in this homelessness issue, and help us eradicate homelessness by coming forward and helping us to solve the problem. I believe in the creativity of some of the developments that have happened. We traveled up to Phoenix to see some tiny homes there. Some of those are nicer than some of the site-built homes. They're just absolutely gorgeous. They're affordable. There's even a couple places here in Tucson that are building these tiny homes. We also need to investigate what can we put in some of these infill areas where there is some buildings that have gone, companies that have gone out of business, and these buildings are standing vacant. And how can we work with property owners who are have lost retail stores and lost other businesses due to COVID and other reasons? How can we turn that around and maybe find some places to do some creative thinking about we can get some affordable housing for some people that need it? I think we have some solutions. I would also engage the University of Arizona. That we have some engineers and some people that are down there. Having worked there for so many years, I think we have some good options down there to engage for some creative solutions to this major problem.
Thank you, candidates. Well, thinking now about the problem of NIMBYism, not in my backyard, which kind of goes in line with some of the concepts that you've been mentioning. Many cities face this issue of NIMBYism and opposition when trying to implement affordable housing initiatives. How would your administration propose to address community concerns while promoting housing solutions in all areas of the city? And Janet, we'll begin with you, please.
Well, again, I'll start with there is a systematic issue if affordable housing is in constant demand. We need to work with our neighborhoods, and we need to work with our developers to come up with solutions. But the city of Tucson has a zoning officer who is well-versed in zoning laws and what is practical for the neighborhoods. What happens when our government tries to come in and reverse homeowner association bylaws and plans and rewrite those plans after the fact. Well, would you want that in your backyard? Do you want a low-income apartment building behind your house? I know I don't. And that's the truth, so not in my backyard. And I don't think I want it in your backyard. Let's figure out how to bring businesses to Tucson and keep talent in Tucson. And that will require a certain investment from the city, but it definitely requires a major investment from the community to provide adequate training programs. Rethink this idea that you're only worthy of a position if you have a degree. I'll tell you a quick story. When I lived in California, when I came here in 2024, don't worry, I lived in a conservative part of California, if you haven't guessed. I didn't have a college degree. I came to Tucson, and in California, I was a contracts administrator. When I came to Tucson, I quickly realized that I wasn't going to get soundful employment unless I got that degree. And I worked as a building and fire inspector and later for the city manager's office. I got that degree. I graduated from Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. And guess what? I'm a contracts administrator. So I look to the businesses, help grow our talent, keep our talent in Tucson, and create a prosperous Tucson. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ackerley.
Some of you may remember several years ago we did a program called Beat the Peak, and it was for water conservation because we were going to run out of water. And so we had 4 years' supply of water in the aquifer, and we did Beat the Peak. It was a pretty intensive marketing program that alerted the community that we had a problem and we needed to come together to fix it. I'm a marketing guy. I'm an advertising guy. I think one of the things we need to do is tell everybody that lives in the city of Tucson who sees the homeless problem every day what they can do to help us. What creative ideas can we do together to come together and do that? So I consider this to be a marketing problem as much as anything, is how do we tell people that there is a problem like we did with Beat the Peak, and we got people to conserve, and now we have 50 years of water in the aquifer, and some say 100 years. How can we engage people in their daily lives to say, how can I be part of the solution as opposed to saying, not in my backyard and I don't want to have anything to do with that. I think we have to come together as a community. As Val Romero says, unity and community. We have to come together and solve these problems as a community to reach out to people who are struggling and say, we're going to do what we can to help you in that. We have churches in every single neighborhood in this city, and we have schools in every single neighborhood in this city. I think we can leverage those particular organizations, and they're already there. They're not something new that's in my backyard and people complaining about it. Let's get these churches to help us solve this problem and help provide the resources that we need to mitigate homelessness and mitigate this problem. If we came together as a group of community leaders to engage some other people, rather than just laying it all at the doorstep of City Hall, I think you'd see some creative solutions that maybe the NIMBYs would maybe accept, because they would be more involved in the process rather than being told what they're going to do to solve the problem.
Thank you. And Mayor Romero, what are your thoughts on this issue, please?
It's not theory for me. We're putting it to work. I believe I should have studied planning and development because, one, I believe in putting strategic plans together and implementing those plans. As business owners, you should understand that putting a business plan together is what really leads you. You set goals. You get input from your workers as well as your administrators. That's what we've been doing in the city of Tucson. The city of Tucson did not have a affordable housing and unsheltered homelessness plan. I requested from our Housing Community Development Department that we put together the housing affordability strategy for Tucson. It has 9 strategies to direct our actions and investments within the city of Tucson. We have passed solutions that are helping create more density in the city of Tucson. Very specifically, the Sunshine Mile is a perfect example of an overlay that's a transit-oriented development that we worked very closely in engaging the neighborhoods along Broadway to create density opportunities to create that affordable mixed income opportunities, mixed uses within the city of Tucson. We created the opportunity of building accessory dwelling units or casitas. We didn't have that opportunity in the city. We just created the opportunity of creating townhomes and patio homes. Our land use code didn't allow for that. So we are putting that housing affordability strategy to work. And the way that we work with community, we've already done a lot of surveys and town halls and events at parks and neighborhoods to talk to them about how Tucson wants to grow. What is it that we need? We have Move Tucson that is directing our transit and transportation. And housing affordability strategy, we're putting it to work. It's being implemented now.
We will move to the next category. And as you can see, a lot of these issues are interwoven. You're already talking about it. But the next category is economic prosperity, our final category, that is. According to the MAP dashboard, Tucson lags behind many of our peer communities in both job growth and GDP. What are your thoughts as candidates with respect to job growth, and in particular, what is the mayor's role in terms of economic development and attracting employers to this region? And we'll start with Mayor Romero first.
I like economic development. That's my jam. I love it because it's so holistic, right? Economic development affects job creation, but it also affects quality of life and how families can grow and prosper in our city. So when I was on the council, I entered my council service in 2008. And the economic recession started. And so I looked around us and looked at the infrastructure and the programs that we had in the city of Tucson. We did not have an economic initiatives office. It was I that directed our city manager to create an office of economic initiatives. It was I that asked our council and our city manager to create economic incentives to incentivize. We have the primary jobs incentive. I helped create that program. Because of that program, we brought millions and millions of dollars of not just construction investment, but also sales tax creation and hundreds of high-wage long-term jobs in the city of Tucson. One of the things that I talked about, if I had a magic wand, was to eradicate poverty. I highly and deeply believe that being able to partner with our school districts to make sure that we have high quality public education, with our state legislators, with our governor, to be able to create workforce development opportunities. I personally welcome companies in Tucson and ask them, present to them why they have to choose Tucson as their place where to bring their companies. American Battery Factory and Pony AI are perfect examples of companies that I sat with and asked for them to come to Tucson. And here we are. Creating thousands of jobs with those two companies. Much more to do, but happy with the work that I've been able to do.
Dr. Ackerley, economic prosperity.
Economic prosperity is the lifeblood of a city like Tucson. Sales tax is what drives the whole entire budget, and it's where the general fund gets its money in large part. And so being a sales tax city, we have to do everything we can to make sure that the economic climate in the city is powerful. I was at an event where the CEO of RTX made a comment. He said, he started out his presentation at Ventana. He said, before I get started here, we have to come together as businesses and we've got to solve this road problem. Because if we're going to have economic growth and development here, we've got to solve these issues of terrible roads in Tucson. I also use the analogy that companies coming into Tucson, if you were going to have a party this weekend for the football game or something, and you invited a bunch of people over to your house, and they came over and you hadn't done the dishes or hadn't vacuumed or hadn't put the stuff away or hadn't done made the beds or anything, and the bathrooms were dirty, the people at your guests would look at each other and say, "What are you thinking? We haven't cleaned Tucson. Our streets need to be cleaned. Our buildings need to be cleaned up. Our areas that are full of weeds need to be taken care of. We need to do a better job of presenting Tucson as a good, clean, safe, quality place to start a company. We need to engage the University of Arizona and do a better job of keeping all the graduates that hop on planes the day after graduation and head out of Tucson because they don't believe there's any prosperity here for them to engage in, and make sure that we're sharing with them. I want to do externships in the freshman and sophomore years of them being here at the U of A so that they can look around and see what opportunities are available for them and not go to the Eller Expo that we had this past week, where these are all basically out-of-town companies taking our graduates and moving them to cities all across the country. Why aren't we keeping more of them here in Tucson? So we need to look at incentives. We need to, 55 years in business, I've only had one visit from the city of Tucson in my company. We need to do a better job of engaging the businesses that we do have here and helping them do a better job of succeeding in this economy.
Janet, economic prosperity.
The reason we are not growing economically is because we have a lack of talent here in Tucson. That is right. 80% of the student body population leaves the U of A after they graduate, leaving only 20% here. We took a big hit in the early 2015, I would say, 2015, when Grand Canyon University was dissuaded from coming to Tucson. That would have meant $100 million in construction costs alone. We have a large number of tradesmen and women here in our town that would have benefited from that $100 million. It would have hired professors and administrators, and it would have had a student body more inclined to stay in Tucson, because that student body is mostly recruited out of Arizona. That was a tremendous hit to us. So again, I look to the business community, and I ask you to develop internships. I ask you to develop training programs. Get off this idea that only a college degree matters. We way overvalue a college degree. And start growing your community. I, as mayor, will do exactly the same thing. I will grow our city of Tucson employment, which is grossly understaffed now, to train people up and hopefully get them to go find new jobs elsewhere in our community, and then bring in the next workforce. And I like Ed's idea of having a recruitment process, that an internship, and that's a good idea too. But businesses, this is with you, with our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, can you tell the business, the members of the business community who are here today what you believe the number one thing is that mayor and council can do right now to make it easier to do business in Tucson and therefore increase the number of jobs in our city? And Dr. Ackerley, we'll start with you, please.
Provide leadership. I think that we've can demonstrate that the city manager and the city departments are all overworked, overtaxed. Every single department head that I met with, except for one, said that they did not have enough people, and they couldn't. They were working their people really hard. And we have 5,000 employees, and good on them all for being public servants and working for the city of Tucson. But we've got to just do a better job. I can tell you a story of a business owner that I know that opened a store here in Tucson, and it took him basically about 9 months to open that store. And in that same time, that same exact owner went to another city and was able to open 3 locations in that other city because of the delays and the lack of coordination. And I'll tell you one little story. They were told to put a sink in a certain place. 8 weeks later, they came back and asked them why they put the sink there, and they showed them the paperwork and said they made them move it, and that cost them about $10,000 and about 2 months worth of delays. We just have to have better leadership, better coordination in the planning and development services. I think we also need to leverage our relationship with Pima County. They're right across the hallway from each other, and they do swap people back and forth as they need to. But I think we need to do a better job of coordinating so that when you come to Pima County in southern Arizona, and you have a choice of going to Marana or Oro Valley or Sahuarita or Tucson, we got to make sure that people want to start businesses here in Tucson and develop their businesses, because we have a streamlined system for them to get from idea and inception to actually building their business and being able to begin operating. And I think this has been an ongoing nagging problem that we've had, and so I would point right to leadership for that very problem.
Thank you. Janet, what are your thoughts on what mayor and council can do to make it easier to do business in Tucson?
Well, I want to be clear what the role and duties of mayor and council are. The mayor and council establish policy. The city manager runs the city departments. The city manager is the one who needs to make sure that Tucson is being business friendly, their permitting process is quick, their business license issuing is quick, their inspections happen in a timely manner, and if the city manager is not doing his job, I'll remind you that the city manager reports to the mayor and council, as does the city attorney, as does the city magistrate, and as does the city clerk. Otherwise, the city manager needs to pick it up and start running our departments to make it easier for businesses to function and receive the permits they need. Beyond that, of course, my door would always be open to everyone. When I worked for the city manager's office, I was the poor executive assistant that was sent out to talk to constituents. And I'll tell you, constituents don't come to the city manager's office when they're happy. And every time I talked to them, I realized it was our policies that were hurting them. And so our city mayor and council can make better policies, revise the policies that create the vehicle for the city manager to run the city effectively and efficiently.
Thank you. Mayor Romero, what are your thoughts on this issue?
I've been working for the last 15 and a half years to really make it easier to do business in the city of Tucson. And we've had incredible programs that I've helped create. One of the programs, besides creating the Office of Economic Initiatives, besides creating the Primary Jobs Incentive and other tools to make it easier for businesses to open in Tucson. Most recently, as I became mayor, I helped create this small business program. Believe it or not, the city of Tucson did not have a small business program. And that particular program, we've created small business navigators so that even if you're thinking of opening a business, you can go to a small business navigator, call our business line, and ask, where do I get my business license? A person there will help you navigate from A to Z. We also created the International Trade Specialist position. We should take advantage as a city that we're 60 miles away from our #1 trading partner in Arizona, Mexico. And we need to make sure that we're bringing companies, Mexican companies, that are locating here in the city of Tucson, because we're really connected by rail and by interstate and by plane. And so we need to be able to expand that international trade program. But most importantly, I've led in creating policy, because mayor and council can create policy and give the direction to the city manager. We recently hired our new Planning and Development Services Director, Christina Swallow, who's a superstar, and we're expecting a lot from her. Bottom line, her responsibility is to shorten the amount of time of the development process in the city of Tucson. And we have to make sure that we're collaborating with our business community to get your input to make it that much better for you to do business with Tucson.
Thank you, candidates. Another rapid fire question. And this question, we're looking for a yes or no as well, a very short answer on the question of incorporation. For example, in such areas like Vail or Tenca Verde or Casas Adobes or other. So the question is very simple. Do you support incorporation? Janet?
Yes, but responsibly and after we clean up Tucson.
Mayor Romero?
Yes, absolutely. We're leaving sales income taxes in Maricopa County.
Dr. Ackerley?
Yes.
Very well. Thank you. Okay, so we are transitioning now to closing statements. So candidates, you have up to 3 minutes each to address any issue from earlier questions that you may want to address or perhaps clean up, if you will, and also provide a closing comment for your vision for running for mayor of the city of Tucson. Dr. Ackerley, you're up first, sir.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I consider running for mayor one of the professional honors of my life. It's just been an incredible experience over the last 5 years, having run last time and running again this time. It's just been a true honor for me to take on this task. However, I believe in the last a few years, the politics in our nation and in our state and even here in our city has seemed to bring out the worst in us, and that's troubling to me. I think it's time for something different in Tucson. I think it's time for leadership. It's time for us to hire more police officers and firefighters. It's time for us to arrest the lawless criminals who are taking over our city. It's time for us to attack that fentanyl epidemic and do some serious work in that area. It's time to support our businesses and to help them deal with the criminals that are threatening them. It's time for us to solve this homeless crisis. It's time for us to repair our roads. Again, my road hasn't been repaired in all the 32 years that I have lived there. It's time to ensure that we have safe and clean parks. It's time to get the cash registers ringing and create better and more jobs. It's time to guarantee safe drinking water, especially down in the south area by the airport. It's time to bring unity to community. It's time for something different. My family has been in Tucson since 1957, and I was born here. I have provided leadership for our clients at Ackerley Advertising for 47 years. I have taught leadership at NAU and the University of Arizona for 32 years. I have a doctorate in leadership, and I have led over 24 organizations, both locally and nationally, over the last 35 years. I think it's time for politicians to bring out the best in us and solve these problems that are facing Tucson. I think it's time for an independent voice in the mayor's office. It's time for leadership. I ask for your vote. Tucson needs a pragmatic, experienced leader. It's time. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Ackerley. Janet, closing statement.
Thank you as well for having me here today. I'm not going to repeat what I said already. As you've probably already figured out, my primary focus is on public safety, transportation, and serving our community. Our public servants are not our leaders. They are our servants, and they govern at the consent of the governed and protect their rights. And we have seen over the last few years where our rights have been trying to take away our rights from us, and in some cases, they did take away our rights, our First Amendment rights through censoring. I would say I, too, am honored to run for mayor of Tucson. But it's a duty, because our city is dying, and we are losing that community that is so invaluable to us. And for that reason, I ask you to vote for me, the conservative Republican, who is serious about taking back Tucson and creating a safer and cleaner Tucson. And with that, I'll leave you with just a couple things you probably don't know about me from this conversation today. You know what I'm going to do for you. You don't know what I'm going to do for the everyday citizen. I am going to care for your environment, but I'm going to make smart decisions, not decisions based on a national narrative. For example, are electric vehicles really good for us? I think not. Are windmills really good for us? Solar panels? No. but we need to have good, solid decisions on how to be a good steward of Mother Earth. And I will make sure that trees are planted throughout our community, but not at risk of our water resources and at a much more successful rate. And we build a shade canopy downtown, and we deal with the shade disparity in lower economic neighborhoods. And then I will build up our employee base and empower them to be the best citizens in Tucson. That's what I can do. And I ask you to do the same as business owners and help us improve our community. And finally, I will always be that person to listen to you. You may not always like my ideas. I may not always like your ideas. But we can have a conversation and come up with the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. And closing statement, Mayor Romero.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity and organizing this event today. Really appreciate the community being able to hear the different perspectives from all of us. In 2019, I promised voters that I would act boldly to transform our city and reimagine how we deliver services to our residents. And I have delivered. My record speaks for itself. You know who I am. I'm the dedicated public servant that has been your leader, your mayor for the last 16 years I've served in public service. Decades worth of unmet needs and lopsided investments have resulted in the complex problems we face today. I've set out to innovate and collaborate, creating long-term solutions to move us forward. My holistic approach that uses data to drive our decision-making and invest resources strategically works. 2 years ago, our community was rocked by tragedy when a gunman shot at first responders, killing 2 and injuring others in the Western Hills Las Vistas neighborhood. Residents living in this area experienced years of historic disinvestment that contributed to high crime, high poverty, and crumbling infrastructure. One of the ways that I am working to create safety and prosperity in our community is strategically investing $21 million here to make transformative investments, from fixing streets to bringing safe water infrastructure to making park improvements and connecting residents to services. This type of investment in our neighborhoods creates hope and lets residents know that the city cares about their quality of life. In the next 4 years, I am committing to creating a safe and vibrant Tucson with economic opportunities for all families. I will continue to bring in necessary funds and work with all Tucsonans to create a culture of yes. Yes, we are, and yes, we can continue investing in ourselves. I'm asking for your vote once again. We have so much left to do. Thank you so much, and hopefully we have a wonderful election season. Thank you for putting this together.
Thank you. Help me thank all the candidates for their statements. Well, we certainly thank all of the candidates for your profound engagement that you've already all displayed in this community, and for participating in the discussion today as well. It's very important. The members of the business community look forward to staying engaged with the successful candidate to advance our community's economic prosperity. Just as a reminder, ballots will be mailed out October 11th in the city. They are due back October 31st. And, of course, Election Day is November 7th, so please vote. I want to thank all of you who joined us here this afternoon. We want to thank Cox Communications again for their sponsorship, their presentation of the event. Through the organizations in TBA that are presenting this event, no later than Monday, I believe, there will be a link to the recording of this event if you want to share that or view it again, so we can make that available through our organizations. And with that said, thank you again, and have a great evening, everyone.